Hi there and welcome to Films According to Chris Wyatt. And today I have a very, very long overdue list for the worst movies of 2017. "2017 was actually a really good year for movies. I mean, it was a pretty bad year overall, but the film scene offered a variety of compelling, thought-provoking movies, risking or daring ideas, or just plain pleasant distractions. Heck, many of the bad films from this year weren't that awful, really, for the most part. That said, there were still plenty of bad, sometimes awful movie outings, and it's finally time to give them their moment. Before we get to the list though, here are a few of the allegedly worst movies of 2017 that I have not yet seen. And now for the real list. Number 10, 47 Meters Down. I was somewhat hesitant to put this one on the list because, well, my expectations for most shark movies are very low, and the film does have one or two passable thrilling moments. But the dialogue is flat, the acting ranges from laughable to nothing special, and the ending is so incredibly stupid that I couldn't stop thinking of its awfulness. If you want a better version of a movie with a similar plot, watch The Shallows instead. Number 9, Ghost in the Shell. Again, not the worst thing ever, but with the pedigree of its source material, this should have been way better. Even putting aside the unfortunate whitewashing controversy, which I've already said my piece about and I won't go into that again, the movie is just dull. It's nice looking, but mostly derivative. Scarlett Johansson isn't bad in it, but she's been much better in other things, and the story, action, and pacing is mostly just dull, flat, and empty. If you're going to do a remake of one of the most influential animes of all time, don't make it a lifeless, watered-down PG-13 rated version of it. Number 8, Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. Remember when the first Pirates movie was such a refreshing, fun, and unique little film? Those were the days. I'll admit that this one's not as bad as the irredeemable fourth entry, but any attempts to breathe new life into the series ultimately fell flat. The effects and stunts are passable, and it was nice to see Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley return for a few cameos, but Johnny Depp has completely checked out as Jack Sparrow, the new actors left little impression, the story was forgettable, and honestly, while watching it, I was just bored. Jeffrey Rush has always been the unsung hero of this series, and even he couldn't do much to liven things up. There she blows, I guess.
I saw her ankles.
You'd have seen a lot more if you kept your cake holes shut.
Number 7, The Emoji Movie. If there's one positive thing I can say about The Emoji Movie, is that it's not significantly worse than your typical subpar run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter Hollywood kids film, but it's still pretty damn bad. Derivative story that rips off far better movies like The Lego Movie or Wreck-It Ralph, horrendously unfunny, and mostly flat animation. Again, not really a whole lot I have to say about this one, other than it sucks.
High five, don't do it. Don't you do it, it's already been in there once.
Number 6, The House. There are few things more frustrating than a bad comedy starring usually funny people. Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler are both talented comedians, but their efforts ultimately failed to generate any laughs in this misguided comedy about a married couple running an illegal casino from their suburban home. Don't really have much to say about this one, other than it tries to be funny, but it's not.
Tell your friends if they mess with us, this is what they're gonna get.
Number 5, The Circle. Now, The Circle was a perplexingly bad movie. It has a good cast and a worthy topic, but it ultimately ends up becoming a meandering, empty, and pretentious techno-thriller. I love Tom Hanks and Emma Watson, but with dialogue this atrocious, even they, alongside other heavy hitters like Patton Oswalt and John Boyega, couldn't rise above it. The visuals are flat and boring, the story feels like it should have something interesting to say, but it really doesn't. It's basically a message movie where someone forgot to include a message. It might be a camp classic down the road. Time will tell, I suppose.
It's only our lies that get us in trouble. Things we hide.
Number 4, Rings. A horror sequel that nobody asked for that spent years being delayed, reshot, re-edited, turned out to be a huge dud. Ooh, shocker. Badly acted, boring, uninspired story, and absolutely no scares, suspense, or thrills. Rings is a pale imitation of both its far superior first entry from 2002 or the 1998 Japanese film that kicked off the whole series. 2017 was actually a really good year for horror movies, so that made it slightly easier to process Rings, but there's no denying that this film is pure garbage and there's little reason to see it. Number 3, 50 Shades Darker. Yeek! I didn't think it was possible to make a sequel even worse than its predecessor, but they found a way. This staggeringly bad and lifeless erotic film has two leads with absolutely no chemistry or energy in their performances whatsoever. The story is confused and lifeless, the dialogue is laughable, even the sex scenes, which are supposedly the highlight of these films, are shockingly boring. I'm not surprised this movie is bad, but I didn't think it was possible to make a movie literally about kinky sex so damn boring. Ugh, only one more of these and then we can move on from this awful series.
Do you think you're the first woman who's tried to save him?
Number 2, The Dark Tower. The long-awaited film adaptation of Stephen King's 8-part tribute to Stephen King was a massive letdown. I haven't read all the books of this series yet, and one's taste may vary on those, but there's no doubt that they offered way more to work with than this empty and subpar action thriller, seemingly crapped out by whatever studio paid for the rights. Idris Elba tries to hold his own, but the story is a choppy mess, the rest of the cast comes up short, Matthew McConaughey plays easily the worst villain of the year, and frankly, there's not much more to say. This one almost took the number 1 spot, but I cut it a little bit of slack because at only 90 minutes, it was short enough and it made so little effort, it was slightly less offensive than my pick for number 1.
I kill with my heart.
And before we get to number 1, here are a few dishonorable mentions.
Everything you know is wrong. Black is white, up is down, and short is wrong. And everything you thought was just so important doesn't matter. Everything you know is wrong. Just forget the words and sing along. All you need to understand is everything.
And finally, the worst movie of 2017, The Mummy. Listen folks, I tried not to put this film here. I even made a list of why films like Rings, The Dark Tower, or 50 Shades Darker would have been more worthy choices for the number 1 spot, but in the end, I couldn't shake the fact that no film left me as flabbergasted by its awfulness and disregard for any kind of promise it may have possessed other than The Mummy. I love the classic Universal monsters, and I totally support the idea of a new shared universe with them. I even totally dig the idea of rising star Sofia Boutella playing the new Mummy. Seriously, she's the only good thing in this movie. But why give all of that to Alex Kurtzman? Not only has he never directed a big budget film before, but he's responsible for writing some of the worst Hollywood blockbusters in recent memory. This movie feels like a less visually impressive rehash of the 2000 film, which honestly holds up as a campy guilty pleasure. The story is perplexingly convoluted. The scares, the action, the thrills all come up short. Tom Cruise has been good many times before, but without a decent director to rein in his eccentricities, he becomes really annoying. It seems like Universal has already put the brakes on its so-called dark universe, and if those films would have been just as bad as The Mummy, that's probably a good thing.
Don't leave me.
Okay, thanks for watching. Let me know what your picks for the worst movies of 2017 were by leaving me a comment below. And if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe and tune in soon for more content. See you soon.
Everything